Grand rising, grand evening, whatever time it is for you. If you hear random music in the background, that is just my daughter watching her show. I just wanted to hop on here really quickly and share something with you. Share a very clear download that I've been receiving. It's something that I've been feeling and hearing within the collective energy, but more so what's being projected towards the collective. There is a lot of want, a lot of desire, things along the line of, I want them to be alone forever. I want them to stay stuck. I want them to stay stagnant. I want them to fail. I want them to stop. I want them to shut their mouths, etc., etc. You get the gist. Let's talk for just a moment a little bit about how energy works. Now, if you are part of the divine collective, then there's a high probability that you have received direct source messages and guidance directly from the Most High Mother, Father, Source, God of all. And so, this is pulled from my experience, but I have a very good, or a very, there's a very high probability and potential that you will be able to resonate with receiving these types of messages. When you receive direct source messages from God, from the Most High, it is not, you're not here, it's not so much that you're hearing, or that I'll speak from my perspective. It's not so much that I heard the voice of God. It is a frequency that reverberates throughout your entire being, down to the core, the essence of your soul. And with that, within that frequency, there is code, there is data, which are perceived and manifest into the mind as words, as guidance, as a phrase, as a download, etc., etc., etc. When I connect with, which is all the time, I'm always connected to source, always connected to that frequency. It is a frequency. And so something that a lot of people might not realize is the same way that we receive those downloads, that information, direct channeled messages from source, as a frequency that is felt and embodied and then known, is the same way that we too communicate with the Most High. That it is the same way that God receives our desires, our wants, our intentions, our hearts. That's why I say, words are nice, they're flowery, they're beautiful, and they're fun to play with, but it is your intention and the frequency behind the words you speak that God receives, and vice versa. It is very much frequential based. So what a lot of people don't recognize is when you're holding, all of this intention, all of this desire, all of this want for someone else on their path, God only receives the frequency. He only receives the intention. And so the very things that people are wanting for the divine collective, the way that God receives and that intention, that energy, it's indistinguishable to what they are wanting for themselves. And that is why, I speak a lot about, what's for the highest good of yourself is also going to be for the highest good of other. When I think about the things that I want for others, I do this mirror thing. I like to objectively observe and then reflect my intent that I have on others onto myself as well. That way I can ensure that I'm operating from a pure heart space, right? Anything that I'm desiring for myself, I'm also desiring for others. Anything that I'm desiring for others, I'm also desiring for myself. So a good example of this would be, irregardless of the things that I've experienced, and I've experienced all types of things throughout this journey, throughout my human experience, the only thing that I want for others are the very things that I want for myself. I want for others to be seen. I want for others to be brought to justice. I want for people to be seen in their authentic, true energy and essence. I want for truth to prevail. I want for things to come into balance. I want for people to meet their self, meet their truth, and that to be reflected back to them, but also reflected back to others. I want justice, balance, fairness, temperance, justice for all, including myself. So, but there was another point I was going to make, because this is just a quick video. Let me think. So yeah, this is just a suggestion. And as someone who understands energy, and as many of you do, and as many of you guys receive direct messages from Source, just keep in mind that although there is a lot of projecting on the divine collective happening in the collective energy, there's a lot of like projecting and wanting and desire being sent towards the conscious creation of your experience, and not so much these people using that energy to consciously create in their own. I just want to say that they are consciously creating in their own. The time for unintegrated shadow is over, and so I don't know if these individuals who hold these things in their heart realize it or not, but the frequency that they're sending out, the frequency that's being received, you know, by truth, by God, by the cosmic flow of energy that connects us all, that frequency and that intention and that desire that they're wanting for you is being received as what they want for themselves. And that can create, you know, some really sticky situations. Another thing I want to add when it comes to, you know, receiving source messages being a frequency, many of you guys might resonate with this, but it truly is, when you receive direct source messages, it truly is a frequency that reverberates throughout you. It's really difficult to ignore. It's possible to ignore for a time, but what will end up happening is when you ignore those direct source messages, when you ignore God speaking to you, through your cells, through, you know, reverberating through you, when you ignore those messages that you're receiving, what ends up happening is certain experiences manifest, more and more experiences will manifest into your experience to turn you back towards that voice, that frequency, that truth. And the experiences aren't normally very pleasant, but they're meant to deconstruct everything around you, to turn everything around you to dust, so that the only thing you're left with is that original message that you received from God, that original guidance, what God's been speaking to you. And so with the divine collective, many of us have had that experience, right? It's like God gave us a message. He gave us that source energy gave us the inner guidance, the messages, and we didn't trust ourselves, or we were being gaslit, and so we were gaslighting ourselves as well, and we ignore it, and then everything around us just goes up in flames, right? And then what are you left with? The original message, the original guidance, the original direction that source was trying to get you to go. You are left with only yourself and only God. And so I see, I feel, and I know that that is what's happening with the Shadow Collective as well. They have so many intentions. They're so invested in the paths of light beings, of light workers, of star seeds, of divine beings, not realizing or recognizing that they're receiving so many warnings, so many messages from Source. And the more that they ignore, you know, that guidance, that truth that's reverberating through them, screaming at them to look, to face God, to face Source, to face self, the more everything in their external experience is going to fall away. It's out of love, it's out of grace. That is God's grace. It's to completely remove all distractions. If these people, these beings, are so invested in the paths of others, if they're so invested in money, if they're so invested in material things, if they're so invested in image and keeping up with the Joneses and all of that stuff's just going to fall away. It's going to turn to dust, so that they are left with God and their self. And it's I don't know, it's a divine sit down, time out. Last thing I've been getting when tapping into collective energy is be very mindful right now of collaborations. The message that my guides gave me, and I have been heeding to this message and operating with this guidance in mind. If you are co-creating with God right now, if you're co-creating with Source, make sure that co-creation carries out, and that everything that you're manifesting and bringing into your experience, everything that's been promised to you, that intrinsic relationship just directly with Source, and all the things that are supposed to come to fruition through that, make sure all those things manifest, and that your collaboration with Source, your co-creation with Source, is complete and comes to fruition before you're collaborating with others. Because there are a lot of people right now who, they will come in meaning well, front facing, at face value, wanting to collaborate, wanting to help you out, wanting to do it as a team. And whether this is happening consciously or subconsciously, what they're actually doing is diverting you from the co-creation and collaboration that you are manifesting with Source. And that one should top everything else. Your dreams, your experiences, your purpose, your path, your mission, and what you are to manifest and bring into fruition supersedes anything else. And so it's important that you take that fool's journey, you take that hermit's journey with God first, and that all of the things that you and Source, you and God, have collaborated on, co-created on, come into fruition before you allow in external collaborations that could potentially act as distractions or deviate or obstruct and distort your manifestations and the outcome, the potential that your soul knows is yours, that you're connected to. And I don't think everyone who does this is ill-willed, or I don't think that it's with ill intent, but you have to understand that there's so many energies with lower frequency and higher frequency that work through people. And so even at a subconscious level, people might exploit you being that direct channel, that open receptive channel, and having that direct connection with Source might exploit that for their own, for what it is that they want to manifest. And it's really sad because everyone has the opportunity, the ability to connect with self and to connect with Source. Everyone has their own innate power to manifest their, consciously create their experience. It just takes a lot of inner work, and not everyone is willing to face themselves, look at themselves, or integrate their shadows to have that unobstructed open channel and be that open receptive channel for Source energy. So they'll try to skip steps by kind of attaching to you, and what you and Source are working on for you, and try to utilize that and usurp that for their self. And that doesn't serve anyone. Earth is a school, and we're all here to evolve and consciously evolve and consciously create and co-create with Source. He, she, Mother, Father, Source, God of all, wants for those connections to be direct, not to use proxies, right? And so I say that to say, just be very mindful and use your discernment that you are not being utilized as a proxy for someone else, because the most unconditionally loving thing that you can do for others right now is remove yourself if you are a block, a hindrance, or a proxy, or being utilized as like a tool or a proxy for other people to connect with source. That connection needs to be direct. That's a very intimate and personal relationship that is built through trial, is built through trials, tribulations, tests, experiences, through doing the inner work, through doing the work that you did to have this unobstructed and direct connection to Source God. So call it tough love, call it whatever you will, but I feel like when you have that source connection, that direct source connection, you also have a responsibility not to hinder someone else's journey, or any of the experiences or karmic cycles that they need to go through in order for their soul to evolve, and in order for them to have that authentic one-on-one source connection themselves. So I said this was going to be short, but it's almost like 20 minutes. Anyways, I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day. I think today is, I don't really know what the day. I believe I am recording this on April 12th or 13th. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, I'm sending you all so much love to the universe and beyond. Bye.